Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome to the third installment of my 52 book challenge check-in. So for those of you who have been following along with this journey, I am participating in the 52 book challenge by the 52 Book Club, and it features 52 book prompts for the entire year, plus a lot of monthly and side challenge books. What I am documenting in this video series is the original 52 prompts, which I am keeping track of in the official 52 Book Club journal. And it's been a really fun experience because I don't tend to sit down and write a lot of reviews, especially not handwrite reviews. It's a little bit something different for me and a really good way to challenge myself. Plus the prompts themselves are really interesting and different to sort of prompts that I would pick for myself. While there are a few of the challenges where I have set books for them, most of the time I'm just kind of reading what I'm reading and then seeing if they fit the prompts, and it's worked out really well for me so far. What you can see at the top are that I have these little post-it notes. These are the books that I'm going to be talking about. The green ones I'm going to be talking about today, but you'll also see that there are some orange because I'm making my way through the fourth installment for this video series, and I'm trying to include anywhere between 8 to 10 books. 8 is wrap-up-ish. We are going to jump straight into them. A lot of these books you might have heard me talk about in other videos because this video series itself has the most crossover with everything else that I'm doing on my channel this year. So I'll try not to be too repetitive and wordy in that way. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about is for prompt 3, which was to read a book that starts with M, and for this I read Magic Shifts by Ilona Andrews. This is a paranormal romance urban fantasy series. I love this series, 2 pieces, and I have been randomly listening to various graphic audios just as comfort books for myself. Kate and Karen are distancing themselves from the pack. They've separated from the pack. They are trying to re-establish themselves and their lives as separate from the pack. That includes them both working together to restore the Mercenary Guild to what it was, which is something that Kate has been a part of, and Karen, who no longer, officially has a job, finds that, the idea of working for the Mercenary Guild might actually be a really fun challenge because he's someone who likes a challenge. The mystery and sort of the driving story plot of this features one of their friends who is a werebison who goes missing, and this story involves a lot of mythology around Jinn, and it's really, really cool. Like, this book is one of my favorites in the series because of the way that it tackles that. There's a particular side character that we meet, and I don't want to say too much to give away spoilers, but his character and who he is, what he is, and how he evolves through what Kate and Karen discover about Jinn in this book is really, really fascinating. So I love this book. I love the graphic audio so much. I love having full cast narrations for these audiobooks in particular because it just brings the whole story to life. Never mind the fact that Ilona Andrews just do that naturally in their writing anyway, but this series, the Kate Daniel series, if you've not picked it up, please do. It is amazing. Alright, so then the next prompt that we come to is prompt 5, and this was a plot that includes a heist, and for this I read Last Chance to Save the World by Beth Revis. This is the third and final book in a novella trilogy by Beth Revis. It is a science fiction trilogy that features hints of romance through it because the two main characters are enemies. Like, they are quite literally opposing forces, and their banter and their flirting is just top tier. I hesitate to call it a romance because at the end of the series we don't get an HEA. You get the hints that this relationship is going to continue, but if we're going to be really honest, it doesn't strictly fit the rules of romance, which is that the story has to have an HEA or an HFN. We don't kind of get that, so keep that in mind. So our two main characters, Ada and Ryan, are, as I said, opposing forces. Ada is a woman who knows a lot. She's plotting a lot. They first meet in the first book when she's trying to steal something off a derelict ship, and Ryan and his crew are there to salvage what is left of the ship based on behalf of the government who the ship belongs to. She is a rule breaker, he is a rule follower. He firmly believes in doing the right thing, and so this is where a lot of their clashes happen. But there is a really deep chemistry between the two of them, and it is electric on page. Like, it is, these books are so short, they're super fast. And being the third book in the series, the title kind of does give away the story. It's the last chance to save the world because humans have, ruined Earth, and Ada and Ryan return to Earth. They don't necessarily live on Earth full time. They're returning to Earth to try and save it from the billionaire who may or may not resemble someone currently trying to pretend that he is in power overseas. Just saying. And Ada is always one step ahead of Ryan, who is fully expecting her to double cross them the whole time. Like, it is so fun, and she does steal something in this book. She's always stealing something. Like, it's great. The only drawback to this series is the price point of the books, and I find that really sad because unless you can get access to it through the library, it makes it a little bit prohibitive for people to read this series, but I did receive a copy through NetGalley to read it. I actually read the whole series as review copies from NetGalley, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity because it is one of my favourite sci-fi novellas with romance plot through it. I think it's just so well done and so well executed for what it is. So hopefully more people read it. Then the next book I'm going to talk about is for prompt 10. And this is a book where the author's last name is also a first name. And for this, I read The Night Librarian by Christopher Lincoln. This is a middle grade graphic novel. It is a full color graphic novel. It was featured in a vlog where I was reading books that my regular bookstore that I go to recommended through their social media channels. So this is about siblings Paige and Turner, who spend a lot of time at the New York Public Library. And when they take their dad's very rare first edition of Dracula to be appraised, the book escapes into the library, and then they learn that books have magic and that sometimes the characters come out of these books, and they are frantically trying to get their dad's book back before he finds out that it's missing, and they end up having to work with the Night Librarian and many characters from famous works of literature to try and stop the world from ending as multiple characters escape from their books. It's really fun, it's really enjoyable, and I highly recommend it. For prompt 11, I had to read a book that was a prequel, and I read an anthology called Burning Up, but specifically the book that I'm going to be talking about, which is a novella-length story, is Whisper of Sin by Nalini Singh, that featured within that collection. And that's because this is a prequel to the Changeling series, and it follows Emmett, who is one of the sentinels from the Dark River Leopard Pack, and him meeting his mate when he saves her from being chased by attackers as she is walking home. And he is determined to prove to her that she is his mate and that they belong together. And I absolutely love both Emmett and Rhea. They're great characters, and it was just really nice to go back and read that story because I didn't realize it was a prequel. And that's what I mean by when I say that sometimes I just read books and go, oh, that fits that prompt. The next book I'm going to talk about is for prompt 14, and that is a work of climate fiction. And for this, I read All the Water in the World by Erin Caffall. And unfortunately, this is probably my most disappointing book of the year so far. And this is about a family who survive supercell storms that kind of wreak havoc on the world due to climate change. And they end up holing up inside the American Museum of Natural History in New York, and that's where they kind of live. However, at the start of the book, they can't stay there anymore, and so they need to find a way to get further inland, trying to find a family property that used to belong to someone in the family. The reason this didn't work for me so much, I mean, I was listening to it as an audiobook, and I think that may have been the problem with this for me, because the story is both set in the present and in the past, and we are constantly jumping backwards and forwards, but it doesn't always tell you when that jump happens, and so it always takes a second to reset your brain into, are we in the past or are we in the present, especially as an audiobook. But the other thing is I also just found it really difficult to keep track of the characters, and so for me, that's something that possibly I needed to read with my eyeballs. However, I'm not also intrigued enough to go back and reread it as a physical book to see if it improves my rating, which is a bit disappointing because it has a really cool concept and I love the cover of this, but there we are. The next book I'm going to talk about is for prompt 35. This is a book that was written in third person, and for this I read Unromance by Erin. This is a truly delightful contemporary romance that pulls in so many romance tropes, and that's the point of the story. So we have Sawyer, who is our female protagonist. She is a romance writer, but she has severe writer's block. She has not been able to get over it. By chance, she ends up meeting Mason in an elevator when they get temporarily stuck in it. And then they meet again at a bar a little bit after that event. Sawyer doesn't realize that Mason is a very famous soap star actor. He is in one of those medical drama kind of shows. And they do figure it out pretty quickly, which is great because they meet, they have a really great time, they have a one-night stand, but they don't exchange names or real names. And so they don't know where to find each other. Their paths do cross again. And they had such a great night. Mason is a hopeless romantic. He's constantly falling in love and he just wants the romance. And Sawyer is the skeptic of the two. But they both realize that there is a mutual benefit in them exploring how to cure Mason of his hopeless romanticism. And so they embark on a series of traditionally tropey dates based off books and TV shows and things like that in order to ruin romance for Mason. However, it has the opposite effect and they just begin to fall deeper and deeper into each other. I had an audio as an arc for this and it was so fun. The audio narration is great. The story is just delightful. Like, it was really refreshing to read this as a contemporary romance because even though it's doing a lot of things that a lot of books do, it elevates it to a completely different level and it was great. I absolutely loved it and now I would like a physical copy of the book. I'm not kidding. I would really like the physical book for this. All right, the next book is for prompt 36, and this was to read a book where the final sentence is 6 words long, and for this I read The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley, which I've been meaning to read for ages. Again, this does feature in that Dimmicks reading vlog. This is told from the perspective of an unnamed narrator who works as a bridge for a government agency who have been pulling in people from the past through a time travel door into the present day. The people who are pulled into the present day are all people who have died in the past, so theoretically bringing them into the present day doesn't change anything about the historical timeline because they're already considered dead. And so our protagonist is the bridge for Commander Graham Gore, who died on Sir John Franklin's that doomed expedition to the Arctic. And her job is to help him acclimatize to the 21st century and to be there to answer questions and all that sort of thing. This has a really cool concept for time travel. It also has a really cool slow burn romance threaded through it. The romance is there, it's heavily prevalent, but it's not supposed to be the main part of the story. This is what we just talk about when we talk about that really subtle thread of romance through a story that's done really well. Sometimes it's done really well. I'm going to talk about another book later that it's not done well in. The last sentence is, they are time travel. The next book is for prompt 38. And this is an adventure story, and for this I read This Camp is Doomed by Anna Zobel. This is a middle grade fiction story that kind of has some paranormal elements, so it's sitting in that SFF category for middle grade. And unfortunately, this was not a book that I particularly enjoyed very much at all. It is about a group of supernaturally powered teens who go on a school camp in the middle of nowhere, and this camp is run by the daughter of the camp owners, and she kind of really doesn't know what she's doing. And we get the perspective of a lot of the teens, part of that is the reason why I don't think this worked for me, because I think there were too many perspectives. And that really slowed the story down because we had to keep switching between people, and everyone's perspective of the situation is different, but we have to get through their perspectives to get to the next part of the story. And it limited my investment in what was going on with the actual main story plot. So strange things begin happening at the camp. The teens are trying to figure out what it is. They keep seeing this ghost of a character, and then the rest of them are just kind of worrying about whether or not they'll get their powers and if their powers will work and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting concept. Like I was really intrigued by the concept of it. It just didn't work so much on the execution for me. And then the last book that we're going to talk about in this video is for prompt 49, and that was to read a book set in a country with an active volcano. For this I read Watermoon by Samantha, Sotto, Yambao. This was also part of the Buzzwordathon vlog and also one of the book club books for Books and Lala's book club. So this is a really interesting one because there are things that I absolutely loved about this book and there are things that I absolutely could not stand about this book. And it's kind of taken me since I filmed that Buzzwordathon vlog where I gave my immediate thoughts, which I love the book. I did really enjoy the majority of the book except for one thing. But now, you know, a couple of weeks later, I'm actually able to say, you know, and articulate why that is a lot more. So this is the story of a young woman who inherits a pawn shop from her father. Pawn as in P-A-W-N, pawn shop. And they collect people's regrets and store them. One thing I'll say, it would have been great if this book spent more time on that concept because we don't spend a lot of time there. We're actually out of that shop very, very quickly in the story, which is weird because the rest of the story is actually quite slowly paced. That's one thing. She wakes up one morning to find that her father has disappeared, that the memories that they are collecting, something has been taken, and that her livelihood is under threat from the mysterious beings that manage the other world that sits alongside Earth where she and her father are from, because they are upset that the memory that has been taken that is owed to them is gone. And so she has to set off to try and find it and her father, and a human man tags along with her on this journey. And there is a connection between all of these things happening. That's the point of the story. What did I love about this? I loved the concept of the world. I loved some of the descriptions that were set up. I love the cover of the book. I can be really superficial. I love the cover of this book. There are a lot of things that I enjoyed, and it is the kind of slow, cozy fantasy that I do like. The thing that I didn't like is the romance in here. It's not really a romance. It feels very shoehorned in. That's why I say, you know, something compared to The Ministry of Time, which had a really well integrated, slow burning romance that's just threaded through the rest of the story. It's not the point of the story, but it is part of the story and it's an important part. This one felt like it was shoehorned in, like you needed to have a romance. And I understand why, because of the way that the characters are introduced and the purpose of the characters within this story. I get that, but I think you can tell that that Samantha Sotto Yambao probably hasn't written a romance before because it just felt very clunky. While I was reading it, I was actually just ignoring the romance. Like that was not of interest to me. I was just reading it. It was part of the page. I wanted the descriptions of the places. I wanted to know more. Would I love to know even more about this world? Absolutely, because I think it sounded really, really intriguing. I especially loved the market in the clouds. I thought that was really fun. Would I try Samantha Sotto Yambao again? Yes, absolutely. But I also think that we probably need to look at things that don't include that romance, or where she's had the opportunities to practice writing more romance in subtle ways into other genres. So that is it. Those are the books that I have read for the third edition of this vlog series. I will probably be back, you know, next month with the fourth edition, depending on how long it takes me to read some of these prompts. So we'll see. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave your favorite emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, just staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.